It's Mrs. Ferris, and it's story time. Let's see who our guest is today so we'll know what our story theme is. Come on up. What kind of animal is this, do you know? Should we give them a clue? Okay, I'm going to pet him, and let's see if you can figure out what he's. Did you guess a sheep? You're right. Our stories today are all going to be about sheep, right? Yes. This sheep has very, very soft wool. Oh, it's very nice to touch. So let's have a story about some silly sheep who go out for a hike. This is Sheep Take a Hike by Nancy Shaw, illustrated by Margot Apple. And it's published by Houghton Mifflin Company. Morning's here. It's warm and clear. Oh, do you see they're all stretching? Maybe you ought to stretch. Sheep load up their hiking gear. Compass, whistles, drinks, and snacks go in packs upon their backs. They trot along a hiking trail, up the hill and down the dale. Trees and bushes soon grow thicker. Where's the trail? Sheep bicker. Do you know that word bicker? It means they're arguing. Some want to go one way, some want to go the other. Sheep squeeze through the trees, sheep rush through the underbrush. Thorns dig, prickers snag, sheep zig, sheep zag. This is almost a tongue twister story. Fog comes up, the ground feels damp. On and on the sheep tramp. Sheep stomp into a swamp, mush, gush, boggy tracks, yuck, muck, soggy packs, blub, blub, sloppy packs, glub, glub, gloppy snacks. Compass sinks, they're in dismay. How can they ever find their way? Look who's with them, a big old moose. Sheep climb out of the slime. They look around and soon they find woolly fur they left behind. Sheep won't stray, they've marked the way. Now they're on the hiking path. What more could they want? I'll tell you, a bath. Sheep trot homeward, rain pours. What a day for the great outdoors. And there they are, having a little snack and a lean-to. So they didn't have to leave breadcrumbs to find their way back, did they? They just found some of their own fur. Well, I think we ought to do a finger play. And I'd like you to stand up. I'm not going to stand up because I'll get out of the camera frame, but I want you to stand up and we're going to march, all right? Let's march together, you and me. Let's march together, you and me. I'll march with you and you march with me. Let's march together, you and me. Let's march together, you and me. One more time. Let's march together, you and me. I'll march with you and you march with me. Let's march together, you and me. Let's march together, you and me. Let's sit together, you and me. Sit on down. And we're going to have a story about a wolf and some lambs. The title of this is Lambs for Dinner. It's by Betsy Maestro and her husband Giuliano Maestro. And it's published by Crown Publishers. Now, what can you tell me about wolves and sheep? Are they friends usually? So let's see what happens in this one. Mama Sheep had 4 little lambs. There was Poppy, Daisy, Tulip, and Clover. And they lived in a house at the edge of the forest. Every day when Mama Sheep went to work, she said, "Do not open the door. Mr. Wolf told me he wants to have you all for dinner. And he will, if you let him in." One day, after Mama Sheep had gone to work, Mr. Wolf knocked on the door. "Hello, little lambs. It's your friend, Mr. Wolf. I want to have you all for dinner. Let me in." No, go away," answered Poppy. "Our mama told us about you. You can't have us for dinner." So Mr. Wolf went away, but in an hour, he was back. He knocked on the door. "Hello, little lambs. It's your mother. Let me in. I forgot something." Should they let him in? Mama said no. "You don't sound like Mama," said Daisy. "Our Mama has a sweet voice. You sound just like Mr. Wolf. You can't come in. Go away." Well, Mr. Wolf went to the store and he bought a jar of honey and he drank it all up. What do you know about honey? It is sweet. Then he ran back to the lamb's house. He knocked on the door. "Hello, children," he said in a honey-sweet voice. "Let me in. It's your mother. I forgot something." Well, the little lambs were almost fooled, but just as they were about to open the door, Tulip saw some gray fur through a crack. "Go away, Mr. Wolf," he said. "Your fur is gray. Our mama has white fur." Well, when Mr. Wolf had gone, Tulip said, "Mr. Wolf almost tricked us. We must not let him in. You know what Mama told us," said Poppy. "Mr. Wolf is very smart," said Daisy. "He may come again." "We must be very careful," said Clover. Well, Mr. Wolf ran back to the store, and this time he bought some flour like you might use if you were making bread or cake or cookies. And he rubbed that flour all over his fur. Then he went back to the lamb's house. He knocked on the door. "My sweet lambs," he called with his honey-sweet voice. "It's your mother. Let me in. I am home early." "That sounds like Mama," said Clover. She peeked through the tiny crack. "Oh, I see white fur. It must be Mama." And oh no, Clover opened the door. And there stood Mr. Wolf holding a big bag over his shoulder. "Oh no!" shouted Clover. "Run and hide! Run and hide!" So Poppy hid under the bed, and Daisy hid behind the curtain. Tulip hid in the bathtub, and Clover hid in the fireplace. Well, Mr. Wolf looked under the bed, and he found Poppy and stuffed him into the bag. Then he looked behind the curtain, and he found Daisy. He stuffed her into the bag. He looked in the tub and found Tulip. He stuffed him into the bag. And then he went into the forest. Did he find all of them? Do you remember how many sheep there were? Well, when Mama Sheep came home, the door was open, and the house, was a mess. "Children, where are you?" she called. "Here I am, Mama," said a tiny voice. "Mr. Wolf tricked us. He made his fur white and his voice sweet, and we thought it was you. He took everybody away in a big bag." Oh, poor Clover started to cry. Well, Mama Sheep grabbed a big stick. "Hurry," she said. And they ran to Mr. Wolf's house. They banged on the door. "Let me in! Let me in!" shouted Mama Sheep in her strongest voice. Mr. Wolf opened the door. He was wearing a long blue apron and holding a big knife and fork. Oh, I hope she's not too late. Mama Sheep and Clover ran into the house, and there, sitting at the table, were Poppy, Daisy, and Tulip. "Oh, Mama, we're having such a good time," said Poppy. "We've been playing wonderful games," said Daisy. "Mr. Wolf has been so nice to us," said Tulip. "You're just in time for dinner," said Mr. Wolf. "Please sit down." And he pulled out chairs for Mama Sheep and Clover. And then he served the soup and passed the bread. "I'm so glad to have you all for dinner," he said. Mama Sheep looked at her 4 little lambs, and then she looked at Mr. Wolf. "I thought you wanted to eat us for dinner," she said. "Oh, no," said Mr. Wolf. "I like to have my friends for dinner, but I would never eat them." "Mr. Wolf, will you have dinner with us tomorrow?" asked Mama Sheep. "I'd love to," said Mr. Wolf. "And you won't have to stuff me into a bag to get me there. Now, have some more soup." So Mr. Wolf didn't want to eat them for dinner. He wanted them to be there as his guests. Well, let's do a finger play about, well, our favorite finger play about food. Can you get your hot dogs ready? We've got 5 of them. And get your pan all nice and hot. I've got 5 little hot dogs. They're cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and one went bam. So fold one down. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 little hot dogs cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and one went bam. So 3 little hot dogs are cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and one went bam. 2 little hot dogs are cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and one went bam. So 1 little hot dog is cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and the one went bam. So no little hot dogs are cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and the pan went bam. Okay. Well, not sure which one to do next. This, I think we'll choose this one. This is by Karen Beaumont, and Jackie Urbanovic did the pictures. It's called No Sleep for the Sheep. And it's published by Harcourt Children's Books. Oh, look at the sheep. Brushing their teeth, setting the alarm, yawning, and then I bet going to bed. Well, in the big red barn on the farm, in the big red barn on the farm, a sheep fell asleep in the big red barn, in the big red barn on the farm. Then there came a loud quack at the door, and the sheep couldn't sleep anymore. "Go to sleep," said the sheep to the duck at the door, "and please don't quack anymore." "Quack," said the duck in the barn. "Shh, not a peep. Go to sleep," said the sheep in the big red barn on the farm. Well, soon the duck and the sheep fell fast asleep in the big red barn on the farm. Then there came a loud baa at at the door, and the sheep couldn't sleep anymore. Go to sleep, said the sheep to the goat at the door, and please don't baa anymore. Baa, said the goat in the barn. Shh, not a peep. Go to sleep, said the sheep in the big red barn in the farm. Soon the goat and the sheep fell fast asleep in the big red barn on the farm. Then there came a loud oink at the door, and the sheep couldn't sleep anymore. Go to sleep, said the sheep to the pig at the door, and please don't oink anymore. Oink, said the pig in the barn. Shh, not a peeps. Go to sleep, said the sheep in the big red barn on the farm. Well, soon the pig and the sheep fell fast asleep in the big red barn on the farm. Then there came a loud moo at the door, and the sheep couldn't sleep anymore. Go to sleep, said the sheep to the cow at the door, and please don't moo anymore. Moo, said the cow in the barn. Shh, not a peep. Go to sleep, said the sheep in the big red barn on the farm. Soon the cow and the sheep fell fast asleep in the big red barn on the farm. Then there came a loud neigh at the door, and the sheep couldn't sleep anymore. Go to sleep, said the sheep to the horse at the door, and please don't neigh anymore. Neigh, went the horse in the barn. Shh, not a peep. Go to sleep, said the sheep in the big red barn on the farm. There they all are. Soon the horse and the sheep fell fast asleep in the big red barn on the farm. In a deep, deep sleep in the big red barn, on the farm. And then, cock-a-doodle-doo! But the sheep slept right through the neighs and the moos and the cock-a-doodle-doos in his big red barn on the farm. He was tired. It had been quite a night. Well, how about instead of having monkeys jumping on our bed today, why don't we have some sheep jumping on the bed? There were 5 silly sheep who were jumping on the bed. One fell off and he bumped his head. So Mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more silly sheep jumping on the bed. So 4 silly sheep were jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. So Mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more silly sheep jumping on the bed. So 3 silly sheep were jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. So Mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more silly sheep jumping on the bed. So 2 silly sheep were jumping on the bed. One fell off and he bumped his head. So Mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more silly sheep jumping on the bed. So that left 1 silly sheep who was jumping on the bed. When she fell off, oh, she bumped her head. So her mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more silly sheep jumping on the bed. So there are no more silly sheep. But I think I'm going to take my hand and pick up my flannel board, because that's what time it is now. We're going to have a story about sheep. And I've got it all set up for us. Once upon a time, there were 5 silly sheep who were as white as snow. We better count and make sure they're all here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But when the farmer spilled paint on one sheep's head, ker-plunk. Let's see here. Let's have it go on this one. And that silly sheep turned What color is that? Red. Well, two silly sheep strutted out of the barn and one sneezed a big "Achoo!" And then down, down, down fell a can of paint. And that silly sheep turned, whoop. Stay on there. What color do you think? Turned blue. Oh, what a sight. The red sheep laughed. What a strange looking fellow. Well, the three other sheep just chuckled and giggled until plop. One sheep turned yellow. Well, the silly sheep all wondered, would they ever get clean? Then 4 sheep had the same idea. Splash! This sheep turned green. Well, the paints all mixed together. And what a mess, and what a muddle. And then that last sheep, oh, he started to slide. Sticky, sticky, he fell in the purple puddle. Let's get the paint out of there. Well, the farmer laughed to see such sport, but he knew just what to do. Zip, zip, zip. He went. He sheared those 5 silly sheep. Get them all up there. We don't want to miss any of them. And said, "Thanks for the scarf, my colorful crew." And there he is with his new wool scarf. That's from the book One Sheep, Blue Sheep. So those are our stories for today. Thank you for tuning in, and I'd love to hear your comments, so stick a comment in, let me know you were watching, and we'll do this again every Thursday morning until the week before Thanksgiving. So thank you again for tuning on in, and we'll have some stories again when it's story time. Bye-bye.